everyone, Dr. Daria here. I am so excited to join you for another Ask Dr. Daria. We're talking stress today because I know you are feeling a lot of it right now. So here's what I'm telling people, kind of a three-part plan. I want you, like we say, you know I'm an emergency room doctor. We don't plan for if chaos happens, we plan for when chaos happens. So I want you to plan for those moments when you're about to have a breakdown. Okay, because it's going to happen. We are all having them. So I want you to have a plan for it. Just like we have a plan in the emergency department for when a trauma comes in. I want everybody to have a plan for when you get to that moment. Think of your body and your mind. 10 is when you're about to have a total breakdown. And most of us are living right now at a 7 or 8 just on a regular basis. So have a plan for when you're there and start to kind of take your emotional temperature, just like we're supposed to be taking our regular physical temperature for coronavirus. Tell your family, when I get to these moments where I'm going to lose it and I don't want to lose it, here's how I'm going to handle it. First step is, what are you going to do if you have kids at home? Who's going to watch the kids? How do you have a plan to disengage? So first step of your plan is to disengage. And this means saying, either your partner watches the kids, or if you're going to lose it, put your kids in front of the iPad. I do not care. Put them in front of the iPad, put them in front of television, and move and go on. Go do your thing. So have a plan for who's going to watch the kids if you disengage. Number 2, have a plan for what you're going to do. For me, it's going for a run. For some other people I know, they take off their shoes, take off their socks, and they walk in the grass, and they just feel that on their feet. Maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you take a bath. Maybe you read a book. Maybe you punch a pillow and scream. It doesn't matter. Have something that you do. Know ahead of time and have it set up. Whatever works for you, kind of have it so when you get to that moment you need to go take your moment. Disengage, take your moment, and then when you come back, think of the one next step that you need to do to prevent it from happening the next time or to make it easier for you. There's your 3-step plan to keep you from blowing up when you have that unexpected rush of stress. Remember, disengage, have somebody watch your littles, have a plan for that. 2, go to the activity. And 3, just think, what's my one next step? What's the one thing I can do that's in my control to keep this from happening again? So you're with your partner, and you and your partner have a different perspective of how to keep the family safe. And your partner's doing something that you think may be putting your kids at risk. So number 1, of course, share with your hubby my information talking about how to keep your family safe. But if that's not working, it may not be a fact or a data issue. It may be kind of a mental processing issue. So I would say whenever you have these situations, sit down, talk to your spouse, talk to your partner, ask them, why are they not concerned? Is it just lack of information? That's easy. Then you can share information with them. Is it that your spouse is just so bored that they can't imagine not going out and having this outlet of playing tennis with their friends and seeing their friends? If so, dive into that. How can you potentially give them that outlet in a way that you feel is safe? Or you're afraid, and one interesting thing I've seen as an emergency room doctor is there are 2 ways of handling our fear. One is facing it and feeling it, and the other is denying it. And I have seen plenty of people who deny it, and it does not mean anything about how afraid they are. So it's possible that your spouse is actually very concerned about your family, and this is his way of kind of ignoring the fact that this is something that's actually very terrifying. So I would be very curious about that. Number 2, I'd make it very objective. Now, many of you saw my article that we posted in Medium last week. If you haven't seen it, it's in my Instagram feed. Because now, instead of saying this is this big nebulous COVID, let's make it objective. And what is the actual risk of your family? So what is the actual risk level of your newborn? What is the actual risk level of your children with asthma? So children with asthma, no matter how young they are, by the fact that they have asthma, they're going to be in a medium risk group. So now look at that. There's a graphic in that Medium article. Show that to your spouse and say, let's look at where we are in the risk level. So make it objective. Take it from being this big nebulous thing into something that's objective. And then the third thing from kind of couples counseling is to, once you've now seen the information, you have the same information, the third step is to try an interesting tactic, which is try to argue each other's position. So try to argue your hubby's position as to why it's okay for him to go play tennis, and you want him to try to argue your position as to why it is not okay for him to play tennis. Try that. sometimes you will find that just really interesting epiphanies come out of it for both of you. And then once you've done all that, I find it really helpful to kind of create family norms. Just in any situation, we created family norms for dessert. Create family norms and say, okay, now we've agreed. So these are the scenarios that are okay. These are the scenarios that are not okay. Have that written out. Of course, it's tough with COVID because guidance is constantly changing. You may have to be updating this regularly, but I think that's easier. And you may be able to say, okay, a tennis game is okay for your husband to do if it's outdoors. They have, some different things so that they don't actually get closer than 6 to 10 feet from each other. He's, washing his hands very, very well after potentially touching a tennis ball that somebody else touched. You're taking these steps, then he can go do what he wants to do in a way that does not threaten your family. Yes, a couple different things. So when it comes to IBS, then they did find that the higher levels that you had of corticotropin releasing hormone, which comes from your hypothalamus. It comes down, it signals eventually for your adrenal glands to release more cortisol, which is a stress hormone. They found that when you had higher amounts of those in IBS, that had increased abdominal pain and increased kind of motility or speed of your intestinal system moving in IBS. So yes, stress definitely impacts IBS. And also in IBD, they found that when stress levels are higher, people have higher levels of inflammation in the intestinal system. So yes, stress impacts everything. We know that when people are higher stressed, there's actually a kind of heart attack called Heartbreak heart attack, and Takotsubo's, it's a Japanese term, cardiomyopathy. And it's when you have an enormous stressor and grief, people can actually have a heart attack as a result of that. We know that people who are higher stress are more likely to get colds and break their teeth and all number of things in terms of their health. So yes, higher levels of stress absolutely go from your mind to impact your physical health. A couple different things why we're so tired right now. One is our loss of rituals. I think our brain, and we'll talk about a number of reasons why you feel more tired and just feel more fatigued and lethargic, and also why you're more physically tired. So number one is loss of rituals, loss of regularity. Your brain loves rituals. Your brain loves regularity. Going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time. I see a lot of you waving your hands for feeling more tired right now. So I want to know how many of you had a normal time that you normally would wake up previously, because you'd wake up at a certain point to go to work, and now you kind of wake up at an erratic point. So when your internal clock is off, you feel off, you feel exhausted, and your metabolism is sluggish, your cortisol is higher, you just feel like crap. So the tip there is to go back to your regular schedule. Figure out a regular wake-up time that you need to get up, and get up that same time every day. Even if it's just the weekdays, wake up at the same time every day. Try to do the same thing in terms of going to bed at the same time. Weekends, you can have a little bit of wiggle. Experts say about 30 minutes to an hour is the tops amount of wiggle you should have. I say you're human, but just know that if you sleep in more than an hour from later than what you normally do, then your Monday morning is going to be tougher. Be ready for that, and be ready just to push through on Monday morning. So that's one thing. Number two, why are we so tired? You're not going outside. You're not getting your vitamin D, which is a separate issue for COVID, because we know that vitamin D and having low levels of vitamin D can potentially make you more susceptible to COVID. So what's number two solution? Go outside, get some sun, take a vitamin D supplement if your vitamin D levels are low. All of those things that you should be doing. Third thing, less exercise, less steps. That is why you are tired. That is a reason, because if you don't move it, you lose it. Activity is key for having energy. Those of you who think, I have activity to keep it up, you know what I do every morning? I run. I run for 30 minutes because I have to do that, or I will feel tired. I will feel cranky. I will not be a nice person to you or to anybody else. Nobody'd want to be around me. Get some exercise in. Lastly, let's talk about your diet, what you're eating and drinking. When you're saying, I am so tired, I know so many people who have talked about it, and there's a lot higher consumption of alcohol right now. So alcohol, what? I'm not judging. You guys, I'm an ER doctor. I see everything. Nothing shocks me anymore, okay? So, but a lot of you are drinking more alcohol than normal, and I get it. You don't have your normal boundaries, you don't have your normal rituals, you're home, you're struggling, there's uncertainty, you're worried, you don't have your normal ways of blowing off steam, so it becomes pouring that glass of wine or that beverage or whatever it is, that's your way, I get it. But so for women, if it's more than 1 drink a night and men more than 2 drinks a night every single night, then alcohol does a number of things. One, of course, is the additional calories, but it does things to your sleep as well. So the more alcohol you drink, it's actually, yes, you're more likely to fall asleep quickly, but your quality of sleep is drastically declined, and you're much more likely to wake up in the middle of the night and not go into rejuvenating deep sleep. So any of you who are drinking large amounts of alcohol, and again, for women that's more than 1 glass a night every single night consistently, for men that's more than 2, if you're doing that, then that is impacting your sleep. So I would say for you, doesn't mean you have to totally stop alcohol, but you need to be very careful about it because that's absolutely going to be why you're not sleeping well. And lastly, your diet. All I want you to do is add 1 serving of produce a day. If you can swap out when you're about to reach for processed food and instead reach for produce, you will win. So I'm Dr. Daria. Make sure you're following me on Instagram so you get all of those updates. And my website is drdaria.com if you want more details. I put a lot more information there and in my newsletter just to keep you informed. Let me know how else I can help you. And I look forward to talking to you again soon on the next Ask Dr. Daria. Bye, guys.